The defenses on both these teams are elite, right? Montana, they will give up a few more big plays, but they swarm. I mean, and they do not miss tackles. That's one really impressive thing about the Griz.
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. On one side of the bracket, some Great Danes stand tall and mighty, similar to the tall task that Albany will take on to seemingly take down the unstoppable Jackrabbits. While across the way, a battle of past and present historical powerhouses are ready to collide between the American standards of the wilderness, the Griz and the Bison. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the semis of the 2023 FCS season, and welcome to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Jamie Williams, Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, coming through Apple, Spotify, and YouTube this week. Thank you so much for joining us on your airways. And gentlemen, we've reached it. NCAA basketball, they call this the Final Four. I believe the FCS was the original sport that came up with that. But the Final Four, here we are. Kyler, fortunately, your Eagles, they're not close to the Final Four right now.
Shut your dirty mouth. V's up, baby.
V's up. Are you excited to see who comes out of this historical Final Four as we're getting ready to roll in the pod today?
Yeah, what an uneventful Final Four. If you're a fan of the FCS and, not just one team, this is not the type of program or weekend you're going to want to watch football. I mean, you're probably going to have one of the Dakotas in Frisco versus maybe another Dakota and a Montana. Like, those are just arguably three of the crappiest fan bases. They don't sell tickets. They don't go to the stadiums. They don't have teeth. I mean, this is just not going to be a good time. No one should watch this week. Yeah, no, this is a fantastic week for FCS football. Even I hate three of the teams that are in there right now. Only one of them I don't care about, so I'm going to be a huge fan for them. But I mean, this is the type of Final Four you're going to want to see. Big Sky, Missouri Valley, CAA, the powerhouses of the last 20 plus years. These are typically what you want to see: a West Coast, a Midwest, East Coast. All we're missing is a Southern team. And if a Southern team was there, maybe like a Furman, man, that could have been cool. But unfortunately, yeah, fantastic weekend for semi-football.
It is going to be very, very fun to watch, and I want to kick right into it. Of course, we are recording on a Sunday. I'm sure you guys are super pumped, and of course, one of our topics might be a coaching change coming up, but that's a big topic, so let's kick right into it.
Yeah, Holy Cross's coach left.
Oh, that's right. Holy Cross's coach left. Oh, and I saw a Western Illinois coordinator got poached over. I think, yeah, those are definitely the topics.
Eastern's defensive coordinator was fired, which is crazy. How are you this? Let me go on a little bit of rant now. 2 seconds.
You need 30 seconds.
How do you get fired when your defense is arguably one of the bottom 10 defenses in each of the last 2 years? That doesn't make sense. Why would you fire that guy?
I feel like there's only one place he could go, which is up, and you didn't really give him a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised NDSU didn't go after him right there. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm kind of butthurt about it, but I guess that's a different topic for a different day.
We'll see. Maybe for an off-season pod. For now, Big 7 into the big semifinal.
The top 7 FCS topics of the week. This is the Big 7.
I know a bunch of you are subscribed on YouTube. First off, thank you for answering the call last week when I simply said, hey, we're pretty close to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. It'd be cool to get that threshold before the end of the year. We popped all the way up to 1904. That's right. 96 more of you click subscribe on YouTube. That'd be pretty sweet. So if you listen to us normally on Apple or Spotify, all you have to do is go on that YouTube app, search FCS Fans Nation, and click subscribe, even if you never listen to us. That really will help the podcast out. But enough of the shameless plugs. Into some reaction from this last week. Jordan Thule is going to kick us off. He says SDSU and Montana played tough games, but was it because the top-seeded schools did not play up to their potential, or were the lower seeds underrated? Great question to get us going. This will give us an opportunity to react of last week. And Jamie, let's kick it out right off with you, my man. What did you think about last week's games? And did you anticipate these games being this close?
I didn't anticipate the South Dakota State Villanova game being quite that close. I did not think South Dakota State would cover the 20, but we're in the quarterfinals. That's 8 teams left. You've got all good teams. You're going to have solid games. And we had 3 really good games and a team that tried to keep the other team's fans out of the building, and they didn't show up. So, no, I mean, I don't think it's anybody lower seed being underrated or the top seeds playing down the competition. I think we just had some good football. And it started right away Friday night with Furman and Montana. Well, I'm not going to call that good football because that wasn't good offensive football. There's some good defense. There's some excellent special teams play. There's no reason, A, that Furman should be throwing the ball 40 sometimes, but I think they just knew they weren't going to run on that defense. And B, if you're going to throw 47 times, you got to complete more than 16. That all said, at the end of the day, Furman hung all day with Montana, and their special teams, which special teams is 1/3 of the game, and maybe even more. Because if you look at each of the games, there were special teams implications in all of those games, except for North Dakota State really not needing it. But things happened on special teams that changed the tide of those games. And Junior Bergen was phenomenal, and he was the difference in the game. I mean, that's it right there. I mean, so congratulations to all 4 teams that won. I enjoyed all the games. Now, we all know that weather also impacted the South Dakota State Villanova game. It just makes both teams one-dimensional, which means it's time for Isaiah Davis to do what Isaiah Davis does. And 197 yards or whatever it was later, maybe 192. A lot of yards. They were moving on. So I got exactly what I expected. I was pretty happy with the games. I wish South Dakota would put up a little bit more fight. But at the end of the day, I predicted them all correctly and enjoyed the football.
Nailed them across the board. Yeah, Isaiah Davis, it was fun to watch him in ways where if he ran for 6 yards, it was because he'd get hit at about 3.5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And then his ability to move a linebacker, move in the secondary, and just bowl people over, put South Dakota State in continuous better positions in a windy, really crappy day. So that was fun to watch. You could look at the highlights of him breaking it out for these huge ones, but I really like those 5-6 yard runs in a cloud of dust, which set up South Dakota State. And I honestly think, to point up to this question for Jordan, James Madison and North Dakota State have ruined the FCS perspective of the playoffs, because you watch those teams and you watch them for 5 years, NDSU for 10 almost, just rolling through teams in the playoffs. Huge blowouts, destructive annihilation. Now, there are the occasional Wofford NDSU games in 2012 that are 14-7, but James Madison would annihilate their first 2 opponents. And so it's nice to see. I think 2 teams were so far ahead of everybody pre-COVID that things just got out of control. And this is probably a little bit more normal. There are 6-7 really good teams. And we're probably subject to more matchups that are going to be a little bit closer in the future. So it was fun to watch. Furman, heck of a game against Montana. And that Albany and Idaho game, another classic one. So Kyler, reaction to these games, my man.
Well, I just want to kind of touch on your point a little bit on, these are close games and maybe we aren't used to it. Maybe my memory serves me wrong, but typically the quarterfinals are way more competitive than the semifinals, or at least that's how it's been like the last 5-7 years that I remember. So I expect to probably see some blowouts in the next round. But
you're right.
The quarterfinals, for some reason, whatever it is, they tend to be closer, and then we get more blowouts in the semifinals. Again, I could be wrong on that, but that's just what my memory is serving me. So to see these games kind of play out how they were, I mean, this is championship caliber football for one. You have the SoCon champ, the 2 best teams from the CA, the 2 best teams from the Big Sky, and the 3 best teams from the Missouri Valley, right? This is championship football. Yeah, it's going to have a lot of competitive games. That Furman Montana one, I mean, such an entertaining game, but these were 2 mediocre offenses all year versus 2 elite defenses. So, yeah, you kind of expected maybe seeing some sloppiness. But again, a SoCon champion who was dominant all year outside of when their best two players were not playing against Wofford, then they had a little bit of a fall off. But I mean, Furman was a good team. Albany, pretty fantastic team all year too, right? CA champs, they were a phenomenal team going into the second best Big Sky team of the year. Yeah, I mean, you're just looking at very competitive football across the board. Now, that SD State versus Villanova, maybe that's the only game that it's going to sound weird. Maybe that's the only game that we didn't think would be this close. And people are going to blame the weather and all of that stuff too. And for this specific game, I kind of agree because of the wind. Cheney is that windy, right? I'm used to that wind. People hate throwing the ball there if you're not used to it. It makes it really impossible. And then Villanova is a really strong rushing defensive team. Now, Isaiah Davis was still able to put up that performance against that elite of a rushing defense. I think Villanova's in the top 24. This probably would have been, the third or fourth best rushing defensive team that SD State has played. And Isaiah Davis was able to still do whatever they wanted, right? So, I mean, that just shows the power of SD State. South Dakota State kind of, once it was the third quarter, you knew it was going to start just going downhill from there. It was that blocked punt TD, if I recall, that once that happened, all momentum shifted, and you're just like, all right, Villanova has no chance after this. And yeah, it's an 11-point game. It felt like it could have been a little bit worse when you were watching that game. But I mean, yeah, this is championship football from the four best conferences of the last 30 years, right? These conferences have ups and downs. There's powers, there's not. They transfer kind of who's the top dog. But these are arguably, and never mind, they're not arguably. These are the best four conferences of the last 30 years, and you can't argue it any other way. So it is fun if you're an FCS fan to see close games from out of conference back and forth, and then you see your blowout from one conference. That's not very fun. That's the only game I did not watch all of it. I turned it off at halftime. I was like, I know how this is going to go, especially since I sent a text to the group chat from the Big Sky Podcast Network. Within 1 second, I went, this is going to be a blowout. And they were like, no. Yeah, I just kind of had a feeling this was going to be a blowout. So, yeah, it was a fun week.
Yeah, and on the North Dakota State, which we're going to be talking about them in a few questions because they are the hot topic this week. You could just see it. Remember Michigan? They leaked that video of them when they announced that Alabama was going to be playing Michigan, and the whole team was like, what the heck?
No.
We thought it'd be Florida State.
Dude,
South Dakota, you could see it on their players' faces at kickoff. You could see it on their coaches. You could see their first drive. They looked like a team that was like, all right, we got NDSU once. Really don't want to be doing this again. And it honestly mentally and physically showed. That was an annihilation. And my biased Bison fan, it was beautiful. I enjoyed every second of it.
Well, when the bracket was popped up, and we were talking about like worst matchups, worst side of the bracket, I think every single one of us up here went, cool. Maybe NDSU's down. Not one playoff team, including South Dakota State, wants to play them. I mean, you do not want to play them. You'd rather play all other 128 teams before you want to play North Dakota State again. I mean, if you just look at their playoff resume, yeah, they're a pretty damn good team. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what they've done in the playoffs historically. It hasn't been much, but they're all right.
Yeah, they will, regardless what happens to Montana, as we're moving to the next question, and we won't make it an NDSU pod. They will be 500 or above 500 on the road in the FCS playoffs, but get them out of the dome. They don't have a shot, I suppose. Are you disappointed in Idaho or surprised by Albany, says Joshua Hoffman, great South Dakota State fan. So here we go. This one was a reactionary one where you guys really were feeling good about Albany. You called I guess it's not much of an upset, 4 seed over 5 seed, went down to the fourth quarter. A late touchdown by Albany really sealed it. And what do you think there, Kyler Neal? Are you disappointed in Idaho or surprised by Albany?
Neither. You have Albany, who played amazing all year, right? Unfortunately, most of us didn't get to see 80% of the games, and I do think that is a question that I saw from Amos. So maybe we'll talk on that later. But, I mean, this is an Idaho team where you started to see a little bit of flaws towards the end of the season when they played Montana, when they played Weber State. Giovanni McCoy didn't look like the same caliber of player maybe we saw last year. And I did get word that he's been battling some injuries. And that's why we even saw their backup quarterback play a few weeks ago and he even got some playing time this week, which is a bummer because he can make some amazing throws. Some of the throws McCoy makes is pretty impressive, but he kind of looks like a little bit of a shell of himself. But this was a fantastic game. I'm not disappointed in Idaho. I'm not surprised by Albany. This is, again, title contending football versus two really good conferences and good teams who are wanting to go to one of the Dakotas and try and prove their worth, because each one haven't really proved their worth to the Dakotas yet. So this is like the playing game to get, handled to the slaughter. That's how I feel. So, yeah, it's 5 versus 4 seed. This is the type of game you're supposed to get. Now, where I was kind of bummed, and they were really deep field goals, but those field goals kind of made a little bit of a change in the game outcome, in my opinion. And also the play calling for Idaho, I did not like. Normally, I say when you're up, don't let your foot off the gas. But on this case, they were way too aggressive. I mean, I even sent it like Jamie in the group chat, since we were both up still watching the game, of course. I think Matt was a little bit asleep. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But I mean, there was when Idaho had the lead, there was a second and third, and you have some pretty good playmakers. You got a mobile quarterback, you got a good running back, you got really good wide receivers who can make some short routes in plays, and you throw it down the field 30 yards each time, which wasn't really working most of the game outside of a few plays. And they did that back to back, which so it was, second and third, and then all of a sudden it was fourth down. You got a punt. And I mean, some of the play calling, I was scratching my head going, that's not the time to be over aggressive. Get the first down. You got 6 minutes left on the clock. Try and chew that clock up. Try and wear down the defensive line. But I mean, overall, just a fantastic game by two really good teams who are at least on the upswing. No one probably predicted Albany to be here. And Idaho keeps improving every single year under Eck. They're still very undersized, in my opinion, and they're still really super young. I don't know. I mean, Chris posted that thing on FCS Fans Nation Network. I mean, this is the youngest team in the playoffs by far. So these two teams have some really bright futures under these head coaches, and hopefully maybe we can see them again next year.
Yeah, it was I don't think anybody was shocked by any of this, but Albany, by the way, good job, Kyler. You're nailing that. I'm going to mess it up a bunch and say Albany, I'm sure, majority of the podcast.
Who cares?
Jamie, feel free to react to Joshua Hoffman's question, but roll us into the third question at the same time, which Robbie McGrath says, how do you think Albany will perform against South Dakota State? So feel free to throw out your Idaho thoughts if you want, but I'm also interested to hear how you think this Great Danes team, because you're the CAA guy, you're coming from that conference with the Dukes. You had so many reasons why they could have gone in and beat Idaho. Will they have a chance here against South Dakota State? And what do you think about the game, man?
Yeah, that was an excellent game. But I don't know why we have to be binary. Why does it have to be Idaho sucked or Albany overperformed? Like Kyler said, it's 5 versus 4. This is damn even as you can get. I don't understand why it's always got to be one or the other. It's a little frustrating. Like, just let's take a good game for what it was, and that's what it was. It also was a matchup of quarterbacks who finished first and second in the Jerry Rice voting last year, with McCoy winning the award and Poffenberger finishing second. And Poffenberger, hey, maybe that was a little chip on the shoulder, but he played great.
Yeah, stud.
The one thing that I think a lot of people that haven't seen Albany will be surprised by is how good he is on the move, left and right. A lot of quarterbacks, they can roll one way and they can make some plays. Poffenberger's doing it both ways off his back foot. And I think that's something that he's going to have to use against South Dakota State. Get outside the pocket. Don't let that defense come to him. He's going to have to make some plays off schedule. How do I think they match up? I mean, just kind of like Villanova. I think they'll hang for a while, and then the power and the run game will take over. Now, Albany does have the top run game in the country, and they did allow 107 last night. So, not their best performance, and you got to be better than that against the run game that they're going to see. So they're going to have to try to take some of that away on defense, which their defense is exceptional. They got a great front seven. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they can get after them a little bit. Real good football team. Just it's one you haven't seen a lot, like you said, because of flow. Good coach, Greg Gattuso. Had a couple down years, but once he's had a quarterback there, he's been fine. So I'm really looking forward. I am looking forward to see Friday night how they stack up in Brookings. Although I think we all know what's going to happen. I do think they'll hang for a little while.
I did have one question before with Albany here. Are we too quick to judge? I mean, Villanova, I discounted them huge. We all discounted them huge. Vegas had it at like minus 19.5. They're rarely wrong, or 20-point favorites. And it's like minus 22 to minus 24. Not the weather. I know it's Brookings. It's like a 22, 24-point favorite for South Dakota State against Albany. Jamie and Kyler, why is that? I mean, beyond South Dakota State, like we know South Dakota State is so freaking good.
But that's
I'm
why.
wondering what's Albany, but what's their problem to where that line is huge? It's not even like 14.5. What is their issue?
Because it's Albany, who's never been in the semifinals before, and South Dakota State is a machine to me. I mean, it's Vegas. They don't pay attention. Go ahead, Kyler.
I was going to say, also outside of maybe 3 teams in the full playoffs right now, and even maybe as a bracket started, North Dakota State just because of the rivalry, but even that probably would have been a pretty big line, or Montana. That's probably the line you're getting versus most teams South Dakota State's playing this year, like in the playoffs. I mean, they are just that good. And yeah, there's probably a little bit of disrespect. But I mean, if let's say Idaho won, I think the line would have been about the same.
It's similar. I agree.
I don't think it would have been much different. Maybe Idaho, because Idaho is at least a bigger brand, and Vegas doesn't know much about the FCS. I will say that. They just don't. So if they're seeing big brands and they're using analytics and all that stuff, computer algorithms, but if they see a brand, maybe it puts a little more weight on it, where Albany's not this great brand yet. Man, I hope they could be. We need a good New Yorker. We need a good New York team. Syracuse sucks. Who cares about anything else? Albany would be fantastic. And they got a great mascot, but I really think this line would be the same on anyone on that side of the bracket, to be honest.
All right. We'll have to see how Albany stacks up there in the Great Danes heading to South Dakota State. Brookings on Friday. Going to be, I don't think the weather's supposed to be terrible. Probably be just over 32 degrees at kickoff. So should be fun to watch that one and see how it plays out on a Friday evening. All right. The breaking news of a Sunday. Here you go. Going from cold weather, one gentleman, Mr. Matt Entz, will be taking a position out with USC as I believe he is, according to this Twitter photo, the assistant head coach for defensive / linebackers coach. He's a double coach of assisting, but head. So that's straight from USC's Twitter. So that's I think
it was, they got it wrong. It was supposed to be because Eastern just lost their defensive coordinator. I think Matt Entz is going to a linebacker coach at Eastern Washington University. I think this is wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely the part that's off. But hey, we first off, I just want to I'll kind of go off on this spiel.
Yeah.
If you guys want to jump on, you can. And then Dylan Kramer reached out to us. He DM'd me and he said, you have to talk about Entz on the podcast, which also leads into Montana and NDSU talk. So this is a combo question. But here's the thing with the Matt Entz thing. I tweeted this out already. If you're an FCS head coach, number one, Matt Entz is a good guy. He's a great family man. He's really been great for our community. He's been part of the Bison program for a long time. Any FCS coach who would have won one national title, heck, how many of them get to just a semifinal? They take FBS positions to progress their career. And this guy has won 2 national titles on his own. He's taken NDSU through what people they don't recognize this enough. Think about how much of a shit show NDSU football was throughout that spring program.
Language.
Trey Lance goes. I know, language. Trey Lance goes for the NFL stuff. Portal, injury, youth. And the spring season was so unkind to North Dakota State football. And we just blindly forget that they bounced back and won the national title in 2021, had one loss, beat James Madison in the semifinals, and blasted Montana State in the national title. Sorry, Jamie. Beyond that, handling a young group with Trey Lance all the way to an only 16-0 season, Matt Entz took this as far as it was going to go, and he could have kept going. But here's the thing that's pissing me off is people are saying that this is a step down. It is not. what is about to be the SEC and the Big Ten is going to be your NFC and AFC of college football. Matt Entz is probably going to make $1.5 million. Don't talk to me about taxes every single year in this position. Think about the networking, the connections, and who he's going to meet to get him to the next level. And I think Kyler's probably going to talk about, or you guys might talk about Jeff Choate or some of these others who took assistant coordinator positions and then ended up coaching at the FBS level. This is just a really good move. It's a really smart move for him and his family. And I'm very thankful for what he did at North Dakota State. I have not been shy about our offensive play calling, but I have never really slammed Matt Entz too much. I think he was the right hire, and I'm glad he was part of North Dakota State. One thing I will say before we start steering into Montana and NDSU, I will not accept that this was an excuse for NDSU losing or anything like that. We've been through this twice. Craig Bull announced, it broke before he told the team in 2013. And there was more drama. If you've read one of the NDSU books on that, then, I mean, you're talking players and coaches not even sharing the same vehicles going to practice. That was drama, and they won the national title. 2018, Kleiman announces to Kansas State, finishes it out, they win the national title.
Shut up.
So I don't want to hear that Matt Entz is leaving and he's finishing out the playoff run is the reason that NDSU goes and loses to Montana. I think that would be disrespectful to Montana, who I think is pretty damn good. So on that, though, are there any impacts on the game? There's not. And if so, let's just talk Montana and NDSU in general. Jamie, this is the powerhouse. This is historical. 2 national championship Griz who've been on there, I believe, 6 more times on top of that. And you got North Dakota State, who obviously is clearly the best FCS program of all time at this point. And these two are finally meeting up in the playoffs. This is why you watch FCS football. What are you anticipating with this matchup with Montana, who seems to, where they seemed, people question them a bit with the performance against Furman, and North Dakota State, who seems to just be absolutely clicking. What are your thoughts going into this sucker?
It's exactly so. That's like you just perfectly did. Montana's struggled with Furman, and NDSU blew out USD. What have we talked about every year since we've been on this podcast? The styles make the matchups, right? All the time. So I'm going to take you back 6 years. Quarterfinals, James Madison needs a last-second miracle field goal to beat Weber State. And all I hear the next week is, oh, South Dakota State's just going to run you guys out of the building. Look how bad you were against Weber State. And I said, guys, different matchup. We match up poorly against Weber. We match up much better against South Dakota State. Jackrabbits fans, close your ears in the next couple seconds. What happened? They came into Bridgeforth, and they became a bakery because all they did was make turnovers, 10 of them. And we blew out South Dakota State. So don't look at these 2 separate results and think that you can take that and turn it into a result this week. It's a completely different game, played at a completely different time of day, completely different matchups, completely different styles. You're not going to get just look, transitive property. That means North Dakota State's going to win easily. Might North Dakota State win? Sure. Might Montana still need 2 special teams touchdowns to win? Sure. But don't count on that being the way. I was looking for a really close, tough game. And I'm looking forward to seeing which defense can make that extra play, because I think that's what it's going to come down to, because both teams are going to want to establish the run. Now back to North Dakota State. Same as looking at 2 different weeks. Last week, what did I say? Cam Miller can't throw for 96 yards again. Well, this week he was very efficient and he was great. Which Cam Miller are we going to get? So there's all kinds of things that you can look at rather than just being lazy as hell and saying, oh, they struggle with Furman, so – and then North Dakota State blew them out, so that's clearly what's going to happen. Think a little bit further back, look and see what needed to happen for each team to win. And they both want to do the same thing, control the line of scrimmage. So whichever team can do that better will be the team that will win.
It literally is. I think they're so similar in ways. North Dakota State, well, let's just say this. Montana should probably be cheering for some wind. Some wind would really help them, because North Dakota State's almost been using the pass as of late to set up the run. Their pass protection has been very dominant. Cam Miller's been diming. But just both of those styles offensively are really interesting to me. And it's not shocking that this is basically a pick'em game, because Cam Miller and McDowell could dice you up with their receivers. I mean, North Dakota State's elevation of Raja Nelson, Eli Green, Zach Mathis, they are slinging the rock everywhere to playmakers, as does Montana. And if you kind of just prep for maybe a quarterback with play action who's going to hit their wideouts and slice and dice you a bit, oh yeah, you also just have really good offensive lines with quality running backs, a Jerry Rice guy over in Montana. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how much stopping the run truly matters as much. I never thought I would say that with these two teams, but I think the passing game is going to be the most important thing between these two. And I think it's
pass protection is part of controlling the line of scrimmage too.
For sure. Yep. But I don't know if you need 4 yards, 5 yard run and pops to maybe win this game. Kyler, what are you thinking about the Griz? I know they're one of your top favorites. So
who cares?
What do you think
Next
about this
question?
You love these teams. You love these teams.
These are by far my two favorite teams of all time.
Yeah, you're happy they're one of them's going to Frisco.
Every single time one of these teams steps on a football field, I am rooting for them. I've never not once rooted against them, right? Whatever. I mean, yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off a little bit of what Jamie said, because of course, a lot of these questions are coming from our Facebook page, and we're seeing all of these comments come out, and it's, oh my God, NDSU beat the shit out of South Dakota, who was a 3 seed, and the Griz struggled versus Furman. This is going to be a blowout. I also don't think you guys are remembering when North Dakota State played South Dakota, right? That was a game of halves. And once North Dakota, again, I think on that podcast, I said South Dakota was lucky there wasn't a fifth quarter, because after the halftime, North Dakota State figured South Dakota out and completely shut them down. I think they ended up outscoring them 16-3, and it was like a complete blowout. And all of a sudden, North Dakota State just did the same thing to them. That's kind of why I was like, I don't think this game is going to be very close. Styles make for matchups, and North Dakota State figured out South Dakota. Just unfortunately, it was a few minutes too late. Because they jumped out to that early lead and then had to kind of climb back. And this game, I don't think the Entz thing, I don't want to talk too much about, is this going to have any impacts on the game? Because I'm not sure. I mean, it always could. To say it doesn't is maybe a little bit too kind. I mean, for sure, there could be some situations, but also with like the portal that's going on right now, I mean, there's already so much cause for headaches. There's already so much cause for what can impact the game with what the portal's doing, or maybe there's just an extra step. I think there's already too much headache and too many distractions as there is. So, you know, these two football teams are going to play, and the better team of that day is going to win. I mean, at the end of the day, the better team of that day is going to win. And you have two historic powerhouses. I mean, this is the type of game you want to see in the FCS playoffs. Now, I kind of disagree a little bit with what Matt's saying about maybe or maybe I'm not listening correctly. Matt, did you say the run's maybe not as important, establishing the run?
I certainly think it is. The offense is, and maybe I didn't get the point across as well.
No, maybe I wasn't listening.
No, it's good. It's just I think
do that a lot.
People don't realize how balanced both teams are. I think if they're looking out and in, you know, like Montana got the new quarterback and the offense started clicking, but they both have become very balanced. North Dakota State post South Dakota State has been a very balanced offense, both pass meets run. So I think if you just shut down the run, of course, that probably leads to one team winning. I just think if you were shutting the run down aggressively, the other NDSU or Montana could still find a way to win. Not a death sentence, the way people might think.
Gotcha. So I do think it would be a death sentence if North Dakota State shuts down the run. North Dakota State's more balanced than Montana. I mean, I've watched a lot of North Dakota State, and I've watched a lot of Griz football this year. North Dakota State is more balanced. I know the Griz offense changed when they put McDowell in, and you know they do have a phenomenal freshman running back there. But
as long as Cam Miller is going to be efficient, they're more balanced.
Yeah, I just even think if Cam Miller's not super efficient, I still think they just have the better balance, and they have more weapons on the wide receiver and tight end side. I think Montana, you need to establish a run. If NDSU shuts down your run, I don't think we're going to see a lot of offense from Montana at all. I really don't think so. I think Montana needs to establish the run, try and pick NDSU apart from the line of scrimmage. The defenses on both these teams are elite, right? Montana, they will give up a few more big plays, but they swarm. I mean, and they do not miss tackles. That's one really impressive thing about the Griz. if they put their hands on you, it's very rare you are running past them. If they put their hands on you, typically you're going down. Where a lot of teams like Idaho, if they put their hands on you, you can still kind of squeeze past them and get a few more yards. That doesn't happen with the Griz. So I do think, controlling the line of scrimmage, maybe having the time of possession and really establishing a run is going to be the best thing, because both these defenses are elite. And the more you can keep the other offense off the field and continue to grind down the other team's defense, the better opportunity you're going to have for one of those down the field plays where maybe you're going to have a wide receiver just do a streak and all of a sudden you have your first successful pass out of the last 6 that is successful for a 70-yard touchdown because you grinded down that defensive line. You started making them only think you were going to run the ball. I think that's how these teams are going to play, or they're going to have the most success. You got to grind down these front sevens on each side, and it's going to be tough to do.
Yeah, you're talking about total defense. You got North Dakota State at 10th and Montana at 18th. But when you dive into the statistics, it's interesting. It kind of goes back and forth, back and forth. These are really good defenses. And the offenses are both capable of a lot of things. That North Dakota State secondary can be taken advantage of. Don't throw it near Cole Winniski. That would be a very bad decision. But their cornerbacks are young. There's inexperience even in the veteran ranks back there. So those Montana Griz receivers, if they're slicing and dicing and making cuts, they could get some opportunity for some big plays. That definitely could be available.
And if you're looking at that and you're saying, oh, wow, 10th to 18th, that's a decent spread. And then you look at it, it's 6 yards a game.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's not a first down.
And exactly. And if you look at the rushing yards, same thing. It's like 7 or 8 yards difference in rushing.
Not
yards.
a first down.
It's a very, very, very evenly matched defensive battle. And it's going to be an awesome game, and I'm going to sit down and watch it.
And also, anyone who has that logo of the maroon on their legs should be shot. That's ugly. This is disgusting.
Take them out. They're true fan, though. That's a true fan.
Ugh.
Tried and true.
No, I haven't. I've been to the dentist in the last 15 years.
I'm not editing that part. We're not live tonight, but the speechless look of Kyler. This is why you should be subscribed on YouTube. 96 away. You're missing out on this good stuff here.
If we get to 2,000, Matt will streak in Frisco. He's put it on. His wife already knows. She sent me a text. She says, I approve. Who cares that we have kids? Who cares that he's in the military? No one cares. We want to see Matt's little Matthew running down Frisco.
They wouldn't even need to blur anything out. Wouldn't even be an issue. Jackson Bison, since we're on the topic of storming the field, happens a lot for these programs, at least the Jacks of late. Guys, Penny's speech has to say, it wasn't even a question. It was just Jackson Bison, rematch from last year. Missouri Valley's the best conference, toughest conference to compete with and get out. So is this inevitable? It's kind of a weird question to kind of tiptoe around without giving away predictions here. But I guess taking us back a little bit to now, do you have the feeling that it sure looks like I got text from our Incarnate Word buddies, Zachary Carlton. I was talking with Preston Adams. I was talking with some of my Bison buddies, and everyone was just saying the same thing. The Facebook page too. Well, this just feels inevitable. Here we go. We thought it would be different. Is it though? Are you feeling, Kyler, that this is an inevitable thing? I obviously South Dakota State to me feels that way. But what about as a whole? Is it just going to be a Dakota rematch here?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a Dakota rematch. The second portion of his comment about the Missouri Valley being the best. Yeah, since the preseason, I said the Missouri Valley was going to be the best by far. I thought the Big Sky would take a couple steps backwards. Now, I don't agree with him that it's the best every single year. I don't think it was the best last year. I think they had the best 2 teams. The rest was not good at all. But yeah, from on paper to what it is now, the Missouri Valley, since week 1 to now, has been the best conference in the FCS this year. And there's a lot of Big Sky fans that I argue with on Twitter when they're like, Big Sky's the deepest conference. No, it wasn't this year. There was a lot of good teams, but a lot of teams took a step backwards, and it showed, right? This is just what it is. The Missouri Valley this year, 100% the best. And yeah, I do think the Jackson Bison, it is kind of inevitable. This is Thanos. I am inevitable, right? We're going to see this for a very long time unless someone else steals the Infinity Gauntlet, which I don't see anyone else grabbing the other 6 stones and maybe be able to compete with these two. Maybe we'll talk about it when we're predicting games, but yeah, this is inevitable. We're going to watch NDSU versus South Dakota State in Frisco for the second year in a row. And maybe this year I'll wear NDSU gear. Who knows? Because, I want to be heel, and I'm not that guy. So we'll see what happens.
Jamie, when the bracket came out, did you feel this way? I certainly did not. Did you feel like this could be an inevitable thing?
It's not inevitable, and I have to read every day. Missouri Valley's the best. It's the toughest to get out of. Who cares? So what? Move on. Tired of this question.
We're moving on.
A stupid question.
But hey, Penny, we still love you.
Stupid question. Let's go.
We still love you, Penny, but we're going to actually steer your question now into Melgate and Peter Bogarty's question here. Again, if I butcher your last names, guys, as is tradition. What are your thoughts about the seeding? Did the committee get it right, and why, says Mel? And was South Dakota overranked? I want to take the South Dakota thing. I just saw the head nods if you're watching on YouTube.
I'm so annoyed by it.
I'm wondering what the system is if South Dakota was not the 3 seed. Okay, because the factors that got them the 3 seed, ranked wins, strength of schedule, win-loss differential, overall record, D1 to FCS wins, FBS losses, which don't hurt you. Okay, those are all the factors. And when you stack them all up, they were the 3, maybe the 4 seed, but people actually argued them possibly the 2. All right, so there should be 2, 3, or 4. If we throw all that out, what is the system?
Yeah.
How do we rank them besides this? Because let's be honest right here. The fact that NDSU is where they're at in the semifinals is the only reason people are like, see, I told you. And you needed a blocked field goal and a good favorable matchup against South Dakota for a rematch for this to occur. But I'm just curious what the system is. You can't just tell me that. And Peter didn't do this. I want to make this very clear. Peter did not do this. He was just asking the question, were they overranked? They absolutely were not overranked. They were placed exactly where they should be. Seating overall, Jamie, you had the bigger head nod because you dropped your head completely. So I'll start with you. What do you think about this?
You remember how I was annoyed at the last question?
Hey,
I'm just as annoyed as this one.
Jamie, I got to defend. Jamie, I got to defend these guys.
I'm not defending a damn thing.
Mel's just wondering what you thought about the seeding, and Peter is not saying South Dakota is overranked. He's just asking, were they?
Jamie.
Mel, go back and listen to every podcast since the damn bracket came out. Committee got it right. 23 out of 24 teams. They got Chattanooga wrong. Just because NDSU is moving through does not mean they should have been seeded. I'm tired of hearing that from the Bison fans. I've seen a lot of that. The committee got it right. Why they got it right? Because of everything Matt said. That's the system. And the 8 teams that got those seeds were the 8 best teams that deserve those seeds. Was South Dakota overranked? No, we could argue they were underranked. They could have been the 2. The 3 is the worst seed they should have gotten. In 2016, should Youngstown State all of a sudden have gotten a seed because they ran all the way to the final? No. But Kettner Cup let him make a catch on the back, and he wound up in Frisco.
Shut up.
Oh, shoot. That happened, though. It's just revisionist history is pissing me off. The committee got it right. South Dakota was appropriately ranked, and NDSU is playing great football since that North Dakota game. It almost, if they hadn't lost that game, they would have been seeded. Guess what? You lost 3 times. And I said this preseason they would lose 3 or 4 times to be the 3rd best Missouri Valley team. For the regular season, that was freaking true. And guess what? Here we are. Like, I love the questions, guys. But use some common sense.
Godspeed to those who, and that's a Walk On Apparel shirt that Jamie's rocking, by the way. ETSU Walk On Apparel, promo code FCS Fans Nation. Godspeed if you are questioning these things. And
what
do you got?
I love annoyed Jamie. I think in Frisco that should be our only goal, because this Jamie kind of gives me goosebumps. I like it. I like his face. I like his mentality. I like pissed off Jamie. Here's what's really annoying. Not Mel, not Peter. I'm not talking about you guys at all. Unfortunately, I'm on this also Facebook group called NDSU Fans Nation, right? And I have no clue why I am. Probably because, like
You're
I said,
on that?
Why
Apparently-
are you there?
I have no clue. I'm maybe just to look at how stupid fans are. So on this page, and it's probably even on ours, to be honest, because there's some people that make some really stupid claims, and I'm one of them too, guys. When I say this stuff, I am not excluded from the group. I make some very stupid discussion points at all. Definitely not about that. Was it a catch or not last night? You guys are idiots about the Montana game. But this is beside the point. So there's so many NDSU fans that are going, we should have been seated above USD. Y'all are dumb. I don't care what you guys think. Seeding is based off resume. South Dakota only lost to South Dakota State and they beat you guys. What in world do you think you should have been seated above? Do I think you were the better team? Yes, that's why I picked you guys. Yes, I watched that last game, and if you watched, it was a tale of halves. And if you saw this rematch going, if you're smart, you'd probably guess that NDSU was going to beat South Dakota. That does not mean that they should have been seated above South Dakota, because if it's all just a perception on who you believe is better, then why the hell do we have a season? Why the hell are we trying to build resumes? Just pick who you think the best 24 teams are and let them play out, because that's the annoying.
Albany wouldn't have made the playoffs.
Albany wouldn't have made the playoffs, right? Because they were what, 0-11, some dog shit, 3-8.
But neither would South Dakota have too. So
exactly. But again, we have a season for a reason. South Dakota had the second best resume. Now I agree. I would have put Montana as the 2 seed over South Dakota, so they were the 3 seed. No one else had a better claim for a top 3 seed than South Dakota State, South Dakota, and Montana. Everyone else, no, because Furman lost, right? They lost to Wofford. If they would have beat Wofford, maybe you could have had Furman over one of those, but you didn't. And this whole North Dakota State should have been ranked. They should have been seeded. Just because you think they're one of the best 8 teams, and they are, doesn't mean they should be seeded over other teams when they lose to North Dakota, when they lose to South Dakota State, when they lose to South Dakota, and 2 of them were blowouts. It's not like come on, guys. This is such an annoying thing, and get your ego out of the way. The cool thing about the playoffs is you got 24 teams, and every single team who is in the playoffs has an opportunity to make a run and improve and be a better team. This is why football is a long season. Teams can keep improving as the season goes on, but we just can't ignore what happened the other 11, 12 weeks, depending on the season, on what happened. No, that is stupid. We have a resume for a reason. We have a schedule for a reason. We build a playoff bracket for a reason. We build seedings for a reason. Those teams earn to be there. It doesn't mean they're better than another team, but they earn the right to host that other team. So screw you, suck it, and click and subscribe to the podcast.
And screw it and suck it is to the suckers out there, not Mel, not Peter. I think
No,
we said
not
that
Mel
a
and
few
Peter.
times.
No.
We like Mel and Peter. We like
I
you
haven't
guys.
seen them do anything negative. This is more along the lines of that SDSU Fans Nation page that surprisingly I am a part of, and I have no clue reason. I don't know why.
You are a man of the people, Kyler.
Ugh.
We have a season for the
People
reason
suck.
was very festive, by the way. I like that. It's a good transition. The season, we have a season for a reason. Moving into the final question, guys, of the Big 7 for the semifinal podcast. Which quarterfinal loser has the best shot to be in Frisco next year? Alex Kenkel, good friend.
I like
South
this
Dakota, Idaho, Villanova, and Furman are our losers in the quarterfinal rounds. Who has the best shot to be in Frisco next year? Kyler, you kind of leaned into this a little bit earlier, so why don't you keep it going, man? Who do you think?
What are you hinting at?
I think I'm hinting at
What
that
are you
youth
hinting
that
at?
you mentioned.
What are you hinting at? Yeah. So there's a couple teams that are on the right trajectory, and the nice thing is these are all the losers, right? They're losers by nature, they're losers by history, but they're on the right trajectory to be winners. So you have Idaho on there, and then you have South Dakota on there. South Dakota was kind of crap last year. Now, they had a few good seasons, few mediocre seasons, but they never really emerged to this. And when both the other Dakotas, and even, you know what, screw it, North Dakota, they're all getting better as is, right? Maybe not North Dakota State, they're not getting better, but they are what they are, and other teams are maybe getting better to play out their level. All the Dakotas are really investing, and they're trying to really amplify that football program. So, I mean, South Dakota's on the right trajectory, but Idaho was so gosh darn young. In Eck, phenomenal coach who gets their players excited. Now, one of the best things I love about Eck, and this is why he's a player's coach and why he's going to continue to make players want to run through brick walls for him. After that kicker missed that giant field goal, the first thing he did is he ran. I don't know if you guys know, watch this. He ran to the kicker, put his hands on his shoulder and face. And I don't know what he said, but from what it sounded like, or what I envisioned him saying, was Eck was basically saying, that was on me. NFL kickers miss this kick all the time. I have confidence in you. That's why I chose to do this instead of maybe punt and get better field position, because you're that phenomenal, right? And he went, what? He had 3 misses or something. But I mean, those were all deep field goals that you're trusting in your players to make these crazy plays. Like, they're a young team. The portal really changes things, though. So watch. After we just say, this is a team that's going to be the best odds to go to Frisco, they just lose 8 of their best players. Who knows what's going to actually happen? So this question within 24 hours may not make sense at all. But I mean, Idaho is so freaking young. The Big Sky, I think, is going to regress again a little bit. There's going to be some players that rise up to the top, but like Montana State is going to regress. They're losing a lot to the portal. I don't think Montana State's going to be that good. Montana will probably be fine. Weber State's going to be good. The rest of the teams probably are going to regress a little bit or maybe stay where they are. So that leads Idaho to dominate probably the Big Sky with Montana next year. So they're going to probably get a good seed. And a good seed, and now you're having a playoff experience, right? They lost to Southeastern Louisiana last year. Well, they just won, a game this year. And I love this type of, we're building a culture, we're building a foundation. And I like the coaches who have year over year slow movements up. I don't like the coaches where it's like year one, you turn a dog shit program into a good program, because maybe that's just transfers. Maybe that was just, you had now a finally good senior class. And then all of a sudden we see those teams all the time die and they leave. But when you see like what Montana State was doing for a while, right? Every year is they got one next step up in the playoffs, one next step up. And then they were in the championship game. But it wasn't, they were going from first round to championship game. No, they went first round, second round, quarterfinals, semifinals, championship game. Now, all of them were lost to North Dakota State, but it is what it is. So, yeah, I really like what Idaho has.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them. I really like what Idaho has on a talent standpoint. And I really like how young they are. And as much as I want to hate them, because I hope they lose every single game, Eck is a coach I would love to have. When you just see him on the sidelines, his excitement, he's going to continue to get players. And I think he's going to continue to retain players because people are going to want to play for him. And that's so freaking important in this transfer portal days. People are going to want to play for Eck.
Absolutely. He's an exciting guy. I think I'm not sold that South Dakota is going to come back and bring things or elevate themselves from this season. I don't know if they're going to build off it as much. And like you said, the portal is a really, really good point. Villanova, I mean, they just feel Villanova and Furman, and I love Furman. They just feel quarterfinals. They just this is who they are, and something's going to have to elevate or change for those programs to take another leap up. So, Jamie, any disagreement there? Or you feel like Idaho is the team that has a shot?
Yeah, Kyler's 100% right. Idaho's the right answer, but just for the fact of making it fun and giving another answer, I will say Villanova, because that is a program. They are one of those teams that do consistently have a solid quarterback and solid skill positions, a solid defense. And also with the watering down of the CAA, there's going to come a time where they're going to get to play Campbell, Hampton, Stony Brook, and not have to play Delaware, New Hampshire, Richmond, William & Mary, or any of the good teams.
Well, Delaware's gone.
That's true. So nobody has to play Delaware.
No one has played it.
So, but it's going to be one of those things with the watered down CA. They'll get to play Bryant, powerhouse coming.
That's not watered down. That's strengthening the conference.
That's right. The NAC is the best. So they'll be able to get a high seed just because they're going to save Houston their way into it. So that could give them some matchups and some home games. Not that anybody's going to show up, but that's always been a good program. So that's the only reason I would say somebody other than Idaho.
Jamie's on fire. This whole podcast has been like just low key. Entz wins in 2021. Remember he beat JMU, and Jamie's like, "Oh, you had to bring that up." And then Jamie's like, "Yeah, Youngstown, they make it to the finals because the backwards catch." And Kyle's like, "Oh, got to bring that up." It's just low key stabs and jabs all day.
Remember when
Great.
it would suck to live in North Dakota? That's the only jab we have. You guys have a good football team.
Do you want to know what's cool though? Now we have a coach that can beat Colgate.
Hey, remember when all of these subpar teams were getting invites to the FBS and you lonely little jerks had to stay in the FCS with us peasants?
Yeah, that is actually
suck it.
Actually,
that's the only dig we can have. You're with one of us.
You're in the FCS still. Big jab. Google gobble, one of us. One of us, to be one of us, at least these podcast hosts are on the FCS Fans Nation network, you have to consume tacos with us in Frisco.
Taco King, coming to you from bright and sunny Fargo, North Dakota. It's time for a taco bet, and time for you losers to pay up.
I am nervous about this question, so we're going to see how it goes.
The taco bets are always the worst.
The Rev, Dustin Helton. Sometimes I nail him, sometimes I don't. So we're going to throw in a little night driving background music here. All right, so Montana got, I believe, 20,000 in the stands in the quarterfinals.
This is not a good taco bet.
Okay, we'll see. 10,500 fans according to South Dakota State. So I'm not good at math. It's a little over 30,000. So I'm doing over-under because Dustin Helton said, "Can we please stop talking about attendance?" He's begging us to stop talking about attendance. So since he said stop talking about attendance, I made the taco bet about attendance. But he says, I'm going over-under 32,500 in the stands for Montana and South Dakota State combined. And what do you think, Kyler? Why is this bad and/or your pick as well?
So this is just horrible. Matt, let me ask you a question. Do you think there's going to be more than 7,000 SDSU fans?
Like in the stands?
In the stands. Do you think SDSU Stadium is going to have 7,000 fans or more?
I think they could get to 9, between 9 and 10. A semifinal game.
And that's pretty. You think they can get to 7 or to 9 or 10? You're pretty confident in that?
I think so. Yeah, okay. I think just the momentum is built for them to pull this off.
Montana's going to sell out their freaking arena, their stadium this week. It's
North Dakota State.
Do you think one Montana fan gives two shits about Furman compared to North Dakota State?
That was my debate when I was thinking about this. I was like,
come on. I don't care if there's a blizzard. All of Missoula is going to show up to play North Dakota. This is different than playing Furman. Sorry, Kevin Marshall. It's not App State. This is not Georgia Southern. It's Furman. No one cares, especially in the Northwest, the mountain area of Northwest. Who cares about a team called Furman? What have they done since I've been alive? Not much, right? So here's the deal. I get it. F you all day. This is North Dakota State, the best team in all the land, the FCS history, versus Montana, the blue blood. The biggest fan base outside of Jackson State. Yes, Montana fans, you're not number one. Suck it. The second biggest fan base in the FCS. Do you not think they're going to get 25,000 fans in this stadium for North Dakota State?
Okay, so you've convinced me, and clearly then everybody's going over. Very simpler. So I'll make this very easy. Here you go. You ready? I got this.
Jamie, are we going over? Let's just confirm. Let's get a real confirm.
Oh, I'm definitely going over, but I do want to note
Matthew Frazee.
I do want to note that I am tired of the attendance question too, because I deleted like 3 posts that talked about attendance just because they said attendance. I said delete post. Didn't care, but we're going way over 32.5.
And we're not controlling your narrative on that page. We have a rule. There's 10 rules, and one says no repeat posts. So you agreed to that when you joined. Okay, you're going over 32.5. Very quickly for the sake of time. Then give me the total attendance, just round it to 1,000 between two stadiums. What does it land up being? What is it?
37.5 is a good over-under.
Jamie, 37.5?
What's the capacity of the Dana?
18.
18. So the max capacity is
I could be wrong on
42.
that, but I think it's about 18.
You said 37.5. I'll say 39.
God help you both if this goes under. I'm gonna blow your
this
Twitter.
is gonna hit 28. There's a giant blizzard.
Just
The
a
towns
giant-
are shut down.
Throws it all into a loop.
Well,
Well,
even I said, who cares about a blizzard? Missoula would show up.
even if it's an awful, Montana fans they're real outdoor fans. So even
That's what they
if
say.
the weather was 40 degrees in Brookings, they're going to get half of it, because Montana fans, they like to talk smack on dome teams, and they have that right, because they're tough enough to actually show up and get it done. So, well, we'll move past that terrible taco bet quickly.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. These are the quick hit questions of the week.
Quick hitters. All right, guys, we'll get her rolling here. And with these quick hitters, we're going to start with Mr. Seth Meyer. Love Seth. He's always asking questions. Who would you take in a fight between actual animals? A bison or a grizzly bear? I'm pretty sure a Great Dane is mauling a jackrabbit in the other fight. Bison versus grizzly bear. What do you think there, Jamie? Who would you pick in this matchup?
I think a grizzly would maul a bison. I just think they're a stronger bison. You know, you look at them, they're kind of docile, just kind of loafing around with their cool little like goatee looking thing and just kind of roaming. Whereas a grizzly bear, you know, it'd sneak up on you, climb a tree, and flying elbow drop or something on you. I think the grizzly would win. I don't know. You know, a jackrabbit I think is a pretty quick little animal, so I don't know that the Great Dane will just quickly maul it. It might be, might have some little Floyd Mayweather in there where you got a little speed. It's not just a little teeny tiny bunny rabbit. A jackrabbit's a little bit more than that. So don't count out the jackrabbit against the Great Dane.
By the way, you should be watching on YouTube. I made my first attempts on AI with coming up with artwork, and I could not figure it out. And some of these,
beautiful.
But like they just did not pan out to I wanted. Look at this. Like
Your other ones your first one that you showed was amazing.
look at this. This is there's no bear. I told it to put a bear in there, and it just made the whatever
Well, it's
that.
because the Bears aren't
thing
going
is.
to Texas.
I don't know what's going on.
I like your first one. Those are actually legit. No, not that. Whatever.
I don't know what the hell the purple thing
That's
is.
ugly.
I don't know what that is.
That's a bison.
I wrote a blue rabbit battling a purple Great Dane. Look,
Rabbit? Did you say rabbit?
Rabbit. A rabbit.
For one, I do love these questions, and it always takes me back to the question, who would win in a fight, a grizzly bear or a silverback gorilla? You guys are stupid if you think a silverback's winning. A grizzly's got like 1,000 pounds on it. But this is actually a good question, because I'm pretty sure a bison has like 1,000 pounds on the average grizzly, unless it's a Kodiak grizzly, then that could be a different, but there's no Kodiak grizzlies in Montana because that's on Kodiak Island. Smart. So man, I would think this would be a good fight, right? This would be a war, but if the grizzly can't get behind the bison to jump on its back, I don't know if that grizzly's gonna win, because I've seen some videos of elks just penetrating a Griz. Not in the naughty way that just made it sound like. I promise I was not.
All of Idaho just got excited.
All of
Yeah,
Idaho
holy
just got really
moly.
excited with the sheepskin, but it's different. Yeah, I think this would be a really good fight. And I think, it depends on how hungry the grizzly is too, right? Because if the grizzly is hungry enough, it's not going to give up. But if that bison hits it straight on with those little horns and the extra 1,500 pounds that thing weighs, I mean, 9 out of 10 times, I think a grizzly bear gives up and it just goes after one of the children bison. I don't know what those are called besides bison, right? Calves. Really? They're just cows? That's stupid. Come up with better stuff, you freaking Dakotas. But the calves are going to go in the middle of the herd anyway, and then they're going to circle around, just like the Triceratops did. So, yeah. We're going back to the land before time. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bison winning most of the time because I think a Grizzly would just go after children.
So you will answer everything under the sun on the FCS Fans Nation podcast, by the way. This is a good one here, guys. Matt Boder says, fundraiser like we did for the Treehouse Kids in Castleton. Hey, great one brought up there. Unfortunately, Matt, we just wouldn't have the time this year to put on kind of the same style event. We roundtabled and talked about it. We think we're likely to ramp something up next year. My life certainly slows down a little bit more in tempo. And I think we're going to do something more on a small scale that could be beneficial for some of the later teams. So Kyler saying maybe we go big again. Guys, Jacob Martinez, hooty hoo, Owl fan. I was surprised at how good the quarterfinal games were. In hindsight, it seems like 7 and 9 teams could have realistically made it to Frisco. Is this the top teams letting us down or just a really deep year for title contenders? Jacob, we kind of bounced that on the Big 7. And we just think that the competition in the quarters, I really liked Kyler's answer, that it just seems like quarterfinals is where you finally get all the kind of auto bids that are just in there and maybe kind of those misses on the at-larges out. And you just have some really good matchups. So that is what kind of hit we're looking at. Jamie Williams, the Rev, wants to know what's better, Irish coffee or hot toddy? I don't know what hot toddy.
A hot toddy is like a warm whiskey with some honey and lemon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like coffee at all, so
Yes,
that's
we
easiest for me. Hot toddy.
Ah. Kyler, you got a pick there?
Am I on mute first?
You are not on mute.
All right, cool. I messed with my button multiple times. I got nervous. Shit. I don't know. I like both. Hottie toddies you drink when you're sick. Irish coffees are what you drink when you're trying to start the day and party. So I don't get sick that often. So let's go Irish coffees.
That was a beautiful theory to answer that question. Brandon Anderson says, is it too early to ask which teams were overrated and which were underrated? Brandon, copy and paste, as I'm going to use you as a promo. We always do our post-Frisco episode, and we love to look forward to the next season and look back on what we missed on. So we will definitely get that answered on our post-Frisco episode, my good friend. Guys, kind of a long one here, but worth it. Kevin Maydall and Dan Sullivan. Kevin says, I think there was more parity in the FCS this year than we thought. The SoCon and CA kind of proving they absolutely best belong. And Dan Sullivan said, this is the very question I had hoping to pose to us, a similar one to Kevin's. He says, Brendan Thumper, sorry. Matthew Frazee, Kyler Neal, Jamie Williams, as I've obviously chosen a career to pay attention to them and their expert tutelage. Oh, I need to say, Dan, that was super kind of you.
We're fooling somebody.
Yeah, we're fooling somebody. Holy moly. SoCon and CAA. Jamie, what do you think? Did they have kind of a prove it year this year?
A couple of their teams did. I mean, I think it's just a matter of the Valley and the Big Sky have kind of stayed up, whereas the CAA has kind of come down. The SoCon's kind of come up through the CAA. But the top of those two conferences are still really good, and they proved it. You know, Furman, I mean, even in the SoCon, Western Carolina and Mercer, it's not a lot of that junk middle that they usually have after having one or two good teams. SoCon's a lot deeper. CAA is a little less deep. They've lost JMU, obviously. They're going to lose Delaware. So we're going to really see what the CAA is going to be here in a few years. But if Albany can continue to play well, and if Villanova's always been a good quarterfinal-ish team. So I think what we're seeing, where we're not seeing parity, is we still have the same two teams that are the best overall, the two Dakota States. And until and unless they come back down to the field, you're going to still see that tier and then a bunch of good teams in the middle, which is your parity. So I still like it. It's still fun, but I would love to see that second tier and first tier get a little closer so that you kind of have some doubt that's going to happen at some point that one of those teams might actually lose to somebody other than the other one.
Yeah, that's well said. Amos Fawcett bounces off that with saying, have you been impressed by the performance of the CAA teams? I believe the demise of the conference was greatly exaggerated. Did Flow Sports prevent us from seeing all this? And yeah, Kyler, you want to get in on this one, my man. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually read this one. This is one of the only things I've ever actually read that Matt sends me. So thank you for Matt for prepping the podcast.
Good job,
But
Amos.
I saw this on on the face of Book, and I actually liked his comment. So there's a couple things with the CA that yeah, it's really annoying. So for one, they do play the weakest out of conference schedule across board. There's a few teams that do challenge themselves. When I say the CA, I do not mean every single team. There's a few teams that do challenge themselves, but across the board, because of regionality, they do get to play worse conferences. It is what it is, right? Because it's easier to get those games. You don't have to pay as much to get them to travel to you. It's a bus ride, right? But then because of Flow Sports, we don't get to see if those teams improve throughout the season. All we're doing is we're looking at stats. There's definitely some CA fans who are watching every single week, and that's awesome. I have not sugarcoated this enough. I don't watch the CA outside of the playoffs and the preseason because I'm not playing for Flow Sports. I think I've said that multiple times on this podcast, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. What I see from the CA is just their preseason, they're out of conference, which is weak, and sometimes even the good teams are struggling versus weak out of conference schedules. But then we don't get to see how they're improving, how they're playing other CA teams. We don't get the good visual eye test from week 4 to week 11, and that does hurt. So yeah, AMS, I think a lot of what you're saying is probably right? Maybe we are dogging on them a little bit, but also at the same time, when you're adding teams like Bryant, when you're adding teams like Hampton, when you're adding teams, Monmouth and NCA&T, I'm not that mad about them. They have potential, but all the other teams the CA have added, I don't see how it increases the CA's elevation of being a top tier conference. It weakens it, especially when you lose a JMU, when you lose a Delaware, and you try and fill the void with 5 or 6 teams, and 2 of them have potential and have had recent success. The other ones haven't done anything. Campbell, I don't care about Campbell. They haven't done anything when they had one of the most talented rosters in the FCS based off of their recruiting classes. They haven't done much. So there's a perception of that too. You're weakening the conference by adding lesser teams, and then unfortunately you play weaker conferences in the out-of-conference schedule, and then we don't get to see you versus actual other CAA teams that are good. CAA has been historically good, so it does kind of create this weird perception. And yeah, I'll be the one to admit it. I don't know what the CAA is from week 11 to week 4, but I know what they are from week 1 to 3. But every single team can improve. If you ask me in week 5, is Montana good? No, they absolutely suck. If you ask me in week 11, is Montana good? Yes, they deserve the 2 seed, right? Things can change throughout the season. And that's the one thing that the CA doesn't get the opportunity to showcase because of Flow Sports.
And that's exactly right. And the fact that, like you said, when you water it down with all these other teams, you don't know if these teams are actually good or if they're puffed up because of the schedule they play, and you don't see the Flow Sport. So yeah, I think what we're seeing is the best of the CAA right now,
which is good.
And those teams are still good, and they're terminal right where they have been. Albany has actually overachieved, not only from their initial projection of the season, but as the season on, they got the 5 seed. Guess what? They're in the semifinals, so they beat a seed higher than them on the road. So that team actually performed better, whereas everybody else for the last 3 years has lost exactly where they should have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good question, good answer, and I just wanted to expand a little bit further on it.
Yeah, I should have thrown Amos's in the Big 7. That is a good one. Amos. Sorry, I say it out of
famous.
Famous. Oh, that's good.
Like the cookie.
Amos. Holy shit, we need shirts.
Yep, I love that one. Guys, Alex Kenkel ends the quick hits here. Favorite non-football sport from your college? Favorite non-football professional team? Interesting. Besides NDSU track and field, you could Google it, being just a dominant force every year. They are really good.
Yeah, the shot put in the where they twirl and throw, right?
It's just crazy. They're good at they win stuff all the time. But it's undoubtedly basketball for me. NDSU basketball.
Did you guys just see your win today, Matt?
Yeah, it was, like 1,000 to 2.
It was literally like 103 to 12.
Yeah, it was quite the dominant force. It's been fun to watch NDSU men's basketball because they compete really well with South Dakota State, who's also a great program. Favorite non-football professional team, Sacramento Kings. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm a huge Sacramento Kings fan. They were awesome last year. De'Aaron Fox is a beast. So there you go. Jamie, what do you got, man?
Currently for me, it is the JMU softball team. that did it. They advanced to the Women's College World Series a couple years ago. Excuse me. Obviously, this year the men's basketball team is actually ranked 18. We're 9-0, so that's pretty cool. Non-football professional team, it's 2. It's the Washington Capitals of the National Hockey League. I'm a huge fan of, season ticket holder. I've only been to one game this year, and it wasn't fun, other than the fact that I got to see Connor McDavid live. And other than that, it's the Atlanta Braves. But those are my 2 teams that I root for that are non-football, and then I'm also a huge NASCAR fan.
Yeah, I knew the hockey was coming up. Kyler, what do you got?
Yeah, Eastern basketball. I'm kind of a pig and I'm kind of fascist, so unfortunately I don't watch softball, but we don't have it anyway, so who cares? So yeah, Eastern basketball, but also Eastern hockey is fun. It is D1 club hockey. We play in the Pac-8, but so we get to play like Oregon and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely basketball. I love basketball. I absolutely love college basketball. It's right up there with football to me. Professional sports, I only like 2 other professional teams. The Seattle Mariners and the Seattle Supersonics. So one could even say I only like 1 professional team, but screw you, Oklahoma. Your shit state sucks. No one likes you. Watch Sonic Gate on YouTube if you get a chance, because this was horrible. This was all politics. You bastards. We want the Sonics back.
You're gonna get them back. It's been floating around.
Give
for
us the
24
Kings.
months. It's
Screw
it's
Matt
gonna
Crazy.
happen.
Give us the Kings.
NBA is gonna expand in the next 2 years easy, and Seattle will definitely be getting that team back. So, but gentlemen, now is the time. We need to figure out who's gonna win these semifinal games next week, and that involves a few predictions.
There is no way these guys can predict football games better than me. I am the Mighty versus Sports Simulator.
All right. Well, we'll see if the AI is better than my AI abilities of building YouTube thumbnails. Here we go, guys. We're going to start with Albany and South Dakota State. The Great Danes are heading to Brookings on Friday. The Versus Sports Simulator has this at about 22.5 points, favored to South Dakota State. Total points just under 43. So what do you got there, Jamie? A winner? And do you take over or under that 22.5?
Definitely I'm not gonna overthink this South Dakota State to win, but I don't think they cover 22 points. I think Albany on both sides of the ball is pretty good, and they'll be able to hang for at least a half and then on into the third quarter before they put it away a little bit.
Awesome. And what do you think, Kyler? You sticking with the Bunny Rabbits as well?
Well, so last week I said, a Great Dane's life is unfortunately short, but they are the greatest, sweetest dogs, and I picked the Great Danes to win last week and beat the Vandals. But the Great Danes' life is short. I think this is going to be a blowout. Give me South Dakota State by over.
Over. Okay. And I will take South Dakota State to win. I won't take the over. I'll take the under barely. I'll give them a 20-point win, and I'll take South Dakota State to advance to Frisco. It'd just be shocking that team is going to make it all the way there.
Oh, bummer.
It's going to be crazy. North Dakota State, guys, 3.5 points, 4 points is what the Versus Sports Simulator has it at. Over under of 52.5. North Dakota State, the slight favorite here. Vegas has them at -2.5 right now as well. So they are the pick'em game. What do you think, Kyler? NDSU going to Montana.
Well, these are my 2 favorite teams. So yes, I don't wish for a nuke to drop on this game and murder every single fan and player that's on this side. Man, I just think these are both elite defenses. I think the offenses, they're both up and down, but I trust NDSU's offense more. I really do. So give me North Dakota State, the Fighting Bison, saying Bison to Montana. And I think the Bison is, when you're going to play in Texas, got to have fiddle in the band. I think that there's going to be a couple thousand cell phones playing that song for him inside of Griz.
Interesting. Jamie, what do you think, man?
It's really hard to bet against North Dakota State in the playoffs but I'm going to do it anyways. I just like the way Montana's played since about week 6. Washington Grizzly Stadium Not an easy place to go play. I know Furman had them on the ropes last week, but I think they'll be better this week. So I'm going to take the Griz to win, and we'll see if I'm right or not. If they do win, I'm probably going to need some security in Frisco. Their fan base has hated me all year.
It'd be fun to see. I think these guys line up incredibly well against each other. I think this is the two highest quality of teams we could have seen match up in the semifinals. I have comped and said on Twitter and a little bit on the podcast, I think North Dakota State was capable of a 2021 Jackrabbit style of run, way less travel. So I don't think they're going to be remotely out of gas when they go in to play the Griz. 27,000 people, that stadium, that environment, the way the Griz have been playing. I just think Montana is going to get a little bit of an edge at home on a Saturday, and I think they'll beat the Bison by 7. So I'm going to take Montana to win by a touchdown in a close classic. But I think North Dakota State's going to push it for an incredible run, but not quite far enough to get over. And I love my herd. I hope I'm wrong. I think it would be great to have another shot at South Dakota State the way NDSU is playing right now. I just think the Griz are going to get it done. So last one here, guys. Howard and Florida A&M. Here we go. Celebration Bowl time. This one's easy for me. I've been saying Rattlers the whole time. Florida A&M over under 3.5 cover. They're going to win by 7 points. Rattlers win this one over Howard. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, Howard, they've done a great job this year. They took a couple of FBS teams tight. They hammered North Carolina Central, who we all thought, or at least I thought, was the cream of the HBCU crop. But Willie Simmons finally gets his Celebration Bowl. Florida A&M, I think they're going to roll. I don't know that this is even going to be close. Rattlers in the Marching 100. I think this is a noon game on Saturday. I'm going to try to watch as much of it as possible if I can. I know I got some things to do, but I'm going to try to carve out some time to check out this awesome game.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. And yeah, I'm surprised that it's Versus has it so close, but the robots tend to be better than me. Kyler, final prediction here.
Well, the MEAC owns the Celebration Bowl, and unfortunately, Florida A&M is in the SWAC. That being said, a few years ago, they were in the MEAC, so they still got a little bit of MEAC to them. Yeah, I think Florida A&M rolls through Howard. Yeah, I am shocked that it's only a 4-point spread right now, but you know, Howard has played a more difficult schedule so far, so maybe that's kind of hindering where they are. But yeah, give us all 3 Rattlers. I think go Rattlers.
It'll be fun to watch. Make sure you catch the games Friday night and then Saturday as well, and noon all the way to about 6:30. Guys, this brings us to the end of the semifinals FCS Fans Nation podcast. Of course, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Walk On Apparel and the Versus Sports Simulator. Using promo code FCS Fans Nation will get you 15% off on Walk On Apparel for all apparel shirts. New merch is dropping quick, and it's awesome. And Versus Sports Simulator, 20% off of your subscription using promo code FCS Fans Nation.
And use that subscription because it's also basketball season. Use that subscription with Versus because I don't know if you guys know about this, but the #1 betting month in the world or betting event in the world is March Madness. I use that every year, and I won my bracket last year. Let's go UConn.
Go Versus Sports Simulator, getting Kyler that money in his pocket. Guys, a few announcements before we roll out of here. There will be no podcast after the semifinal on Sunday, as is tradition. We always feel like we want to give the fans a good time to present the best questions, give everybody that good holiday break. And we typically will drop that Frisco preview episode 8 to 10 days before Frisco actually kicks off. So right after the semifinals, don't anticipate a podcast dropping. Do anticipate a 2 margaritas with Matt. Book it, guarantee, with some fans of the teams that advance to Frisco. So check your DMs, because if your team advances to Frisco, you're gonna have some margaritas with me, and we're gonna talk about those teams and fan bases. Possibly a mega live as well, hosted by the Rev. You could see that the week after of Sunday. And again, want to say thank you to our sponsors. So there are going to be a lot of things rolling up. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to this on YouTube, because it will be our live streamed Frisco game day episode the morning of a college game day style feel, as is tradition. And we'd love to see almost 1,000 of you viewing it, just like we did with our mock playoff special and the playoff reveal. So that being said, this is the end of the FCS Fans Nation podcast. We truly appreciate you guys coming in, checking us out. Regardless of what happens, we are going to know one thing. We're going to know the two teams that Jamie, Kyler, myself, Taco King, and so many others, who are the two teams we'll be watching together in Frisco. Going to be a good time. Prep the margaritas, prep the beers. We'll see you after the semis. Have a good holiday season. We'll catch you on the next one. Boom.
Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, or even YouTube. And make sure to follow our FCS Fans Nation social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. Boom.
I don't think the water was 28 degrees.
It might have been 28 Celsius.
I think because if it was 28 degrees, Matt, I don't know if maybe this is why education's important. The water would be what we like to call in the business frozen.